Here we are, another episode, I should say. I don't know what number it is anymore. There's too many. But we still are on season 3 of If It Be Your Will podcast. Today I have Beatrice and Quinn coming in from out west. They're in the western part of Canada. And they are Diamond Day, which is a relatively new band that came out of Montreal. I guess it's a fusion of Boston, Montreal coming together and creating some really amazing shoegazy, electro-poppy, dream poppy. We're going to get them to describe it a little bit better than that. But I want to just thank you guys for hopping on and sharing a little bit about your latest record.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah. So I tend to start these with a little bit of like back in time, hopping in the time machine. Beatrice, you had just mentioned that you were born in Vermont, but you spent a lot of time growing up in the folk areas of Quebec. What was your musical exposure at that young age in the province of Quebec? Because I know that you allude to the traditional folk music that you were surrounded by as a person growing up. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so my both my parents are folk musicians, and they met sort of. There's this scene between Quebec and New England, Vermont and all that area. There's a lot of strong like francophone connections. So my dad is a fiddler, and he met my mom who's a folk singer, and I guess we moved to Quebec when I was 1, and we just spent all of my childhood around folk musicians and touring, but also in like house parties. And so I grew up listening to like fiddle music and accordion and acoustic guitar and French song circles. So I it definitely, that's most of my musical exposure has been that kind of stuff. So very different than this project.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to that too a bit. But Quinn, also you come from a lineage as well. Your dad was a luthier who made guitars. And is it true that you started touring at 12? Like, what's that about?
Yeah, both Beatrice and I have been like she was in her family band when you were like what,
hmm
7 or 8 or something?
Well, I started like tagging along, learning the fiddle. So I don't know if I was equally part of the band, but I was on stage.
So compared to her, I'm a
Right.
late bloomer, but I started playing traditional music, and my dad's a luthier, so there was a bunch of guitars around the house. I grew up playing fiddle, but I thought the guitar was really cool, and I really wanted to play guitar, and they were lying around the house too. So it's like
Right.
all I wanted to do was play guitar. I thought it was so cool, and then so finally I just shifted my focus totally to that. And then once I started doing that, people were hiring me to accompany them. I was touring with lots of different traditional musicians, a lot with Ashley McIsaac back in like
Right. Oh,
that's when I was like 12 to 16 or something like that. I was doing that, and there's a lot of bands in Canada that I was playing with. So that was my
that's
beginning.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard too, Quinn, that your dad had like an ultimate record collection that was also a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Like a 40-year-old record collection. Can you
Yeah. Well,
shine a light on that a bit?
he had a ton of records. He grew up in northern Alberta and then moved to Edmonton, and he just had been collecting records since he was a kid. Um, but they didn't all make it to Victoria. That's where, eventually my parents moved from Edmonton to Victoria, and then I was born in 96. And so the records that made their way there, my dad still complains about how he got ripped off, where he had to sell some of his records, but the most important ones were there. So there's a lot of jazz stuff. I remember burning, digitizing records when I was a teenager, and there was a bunch of like John Coltrane and Miles Davis stuff. And when I used to play video games with my friends, we would play Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and I found out that you could put your own music on it. So like we'd be
Right.
playing, and then Miles Davis was like playing in the background. So I was
That's
obsessed with
really
all
cool. Really cool. And Beatrice, you also had your dad had a band as well when
Yeah.
you were growing up as well. Le père du diable.
Le rêve
Um,
du diable, yeah.
Le rêve du diable. So we'll translate that. What is that? The devil's dream,
Devil's Dream, yeah.
right?
It's
Eh,
very well. It's pretty fair known tune, like traditional tune called the Devil's Dream. I'm sure if you heard
okay,
it, you know it. But yeah, that was
right,
his
right.
band.
And
He, yeah.
what kind of exposure did you have to that band? Like,
Well,
and your
that
dad playing?
I never heard that band because I wasn't born when that was happening.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was in the 70s. It was one of like the first like bands to actually like go on like musicians doing traditional music on stages, in Quebec. Like
Right.
that wasn't really a thing. It was more just like, you would hear it in people's homes. So he was part of that movement of bringing that music, in different towns and touring and stuff like that. And then
Oh,
he had a couple of other bands. But my exposure was definitely just hearing my dad play fiddle on the couch every day. That was my life. And I guess my parents didn't listen to that much music when I think back on it. They were mostly playing it, and my mom would just be singing songs all the time and stuff like that. So
amazing.
that was my upbringing.
That's so cool. I mean, so both of you come from this foundational background where, you know, family was involved in music, doing music. Um, you guys started collaborating 2019. What brought the two of you together?
We started doing, well, Beatrix has a band that's based
Mm-hmm.
in Montreal called Rosier. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of stemming all from that traditional part. Everyone in that band, all their parents are musicians and dance callers, and they do square dances in Quebec and play different like flute and fiddle and bass, guitar, and things like that. So they are like the children of that generation, and they started their own group, which slowly uh, was like evolving into something that sounded a little bit more of an indie rock band.
Right.
And they were called, you can pronounce it better.
The band was called Les Poules à Colin.
So, and
Nice.
we in 2019 they wanted to do a big shift in how they sounded, so we made an album together. I was producing them. Uh, and so that was the first time we ever collaborated kind of on something was through that band, and they changed their name to Rosier. Um, and then there was Beatrix is really doing a lot of bringing songs to that band and taking traditional songs and morphing them into something else. So she's got quite a backlog of material, and there was some of it that didn't fit with that group. And so that was kind of the beginning of how we started this was, she had she had a lot of stuff that didn't really work for that. And so we would kind of workshop it and record stuff and just experiment. And yeah.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to the Rosier as I was getting ready to talk with you. And Beatrice, how did that get started? How did that group come together of
Hmm.
kids of musicians?
It started when I was a kid. I was 12 when my first rehearsal with that band.
Wow.
Um, but we're basically just all childhood friends. Like Quinn was saying, like all of our parents are musicians, and a lot of our parents have played in bands together also, like in the 90s and early 2000s. So we met just as like friends of our parents, basically, or friends of, yeah, of our parents' kids. Um, and I was playing fiddle. Someone was playing banjo, someone else was playing guitar. We kind of just were like, oh, well, we have all of these instruments, like we could potentially like try something out. Some of us even learned just new instrument because it's like, oh, well, we're not gonna have like two piano players. So like
Right,
one of the girls learned bass because it was, like it was that time where it was just like kind of DIY, like
right,
let's figure
right.
something out. And that's been going on, yeah, for since 2008 now. So it's been
Wow.
quite a journey, and we're still together. And we've brought Quinn along to do some producing and some arranging with us. And
Right.
the project has changed a lot over the last like 15 years, but it's still the same people. And we still do some French songs, French traditional songs that we sort of
Mm-hmm.
rearrange. And a lot of people probably wouldn't even know that that's the source of all of our material, but it's still pretty ingrained in my music making for sure. Like that's kind of what I know best. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, and I listened to a few of the releases that were put out as Rosier, and I mean, it evolves over time, right? Like it has this definite folk homegrown quality to it, but it does have this airy poppy sensibility to it as well. How do you determine what song goes with what band? like like how do you determine that?
Well, for Diamond Day, we're mostly like writing the songs. Like we're none of the songs are traditional. Um, so I guess that's one of the big things with my other band was I was starting to bring my own songs, but then it was kind of like, well, where how do we fit like my original songs and these like traditional songs? So and we do
Right.
like some of them. Some I think some of them work because I think it's a fun little activity to try to like write sort of like a folk song or something that sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's probably when we first decided to really focus on a separate project was when I was experimenting with songwriting and Quinn was experimenting with production.
Right.
And he started building his own little studio and doing some mixing and stuff like that. So when both of those experimentations kind of combine, it was like, whoa, like this is a cool sound where we kind of individually have things going on, and then when we put them together, then something even cooler comes out of it. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
That's really cool. And Quinn, what was it about Beatrix songs that you saw that they could go off in this kind of shoegazy, dream poppy direction? What was it about the essence of the songs that she was bringing to you, saying, these probably don't fit much with this band, but maybe they could be something else? Like, did you have a vision already with those songs as to maybe a sound that might be able to be um, coerced out of the songs she was bringing?
Well, her style of her uh, is very like it's kind of like an inside joke if Beatrix brings a tune or a song that she wrote to the band or whatever, and we'll all listen to it. And it'll be like it's always very unique. Like she just has a very unique sound, and also time wise, like in traditional music, there's this thing called crooked. Like crooked tunes. Have you ever heard of that before? It's like there'll be added measures or
Okay. Okay.
less measures or added beats or taken away beats, and it's a part of traditional music
Hmm.
that there aren't really other styles of music. Like it's not something that's very common in pop music or rock music or like any genre. And it kind of, as far as we understand, it comes from square dances and like when
Hmm.
when a fiddler is playing and there's someone dancing and they mess up the beat, the fiddler will adjust and then go and then start playing with the dancer or whatever. There's different
Right.
there's different people think that came from different things, but anyway, it's
Hmm.
kind of a weird feature of traditional music that is so ingrained in her writing that
Hmm.
she's not sometimes not even aware that it's there. It's just she has such a unique sound. So, um, and also when it comes to chords, like Beatrix would never write like a really simple like pop like 1 4 5 kind of. I mean, she
Right.
could, but
Right.
but
Like a
like
GCD, like a
yeah,
standard,
exactly.
like right, right.
Yes, her
Have to
song,
work on that.
but it's like yeah, so I don't. It's hard. It's like when you hear the songs, it's like wow, this could be so many different things, and
Hmm.
it's hard to not just keep it as is. Like some of the latest Rosier stuff is really similar to the demos. Like she recorded her guitar on through her computer laptop for a demo, and it just sounds so good. So it's like we just decided, well, that's going to be the guitar. And
Right.
they'll click bleed like probably one of the tracks you heard before coming on, you can hear some of the click, and it's just like, well, the guitar sounds so good, and the click
Right.
is just sounds amazing. So let's just keep that. So
Cool.
yeah, sometimes it's like hard because she's created this song by herself, with a guitar, but then at the same time, you get excited about how could I reimagine this? So if like Kevin Shields would be writing songs that had added or taken away measures, you could imagine it like that, or the way that she's writing songs like harmonically, the chord progressions, or like the melody that you'd have to decide of like what the chord progression would be based on a melody, and it's not going to be like a normal 1-4-5 thing. So
Right.
thinking about like the shoegaze style or like broadcast or something like that, they all like it just brings your mind to different places, and it's really fun to experiment with that, you know. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It's just fun because she's bringing such cool songs. So
It's
yeah.
also a sound that we both really love, and like we listen to that kind of music. So I think
Right.
it's fair to say that like we want to make music that we enjoy listening to. Like yeah, it's just a fun experiment to try to do that and to hear and then finding out that there are similarities with like I think about like Elizabeth Fraser and the way that she sings like in the Cocteau Twins. Like
Yeah.
it really reminds me of some like Celtic singers that
Yeah.
I grew up listening to, and like people like the intricate melodies and the performance, and there's something about that that's really cool, and we're not sure exactly how do they coexist, but somehow there's something in there that works. So we're gonna
Absolutely.
keep exploring it.
And Beatrice, did you have an idea that like I have these songs that won't really fit? Like, were you informing Quinn as to maybe a direction you want to go in, or was it really you just stumbled upon it, like through experimentation and just going through the songs and trying to figure out what kind of layers and what kind of added instrumentation that you would add to it?
Um, I guess it depends. Like every song was different. If we're speaking about the record that we put out,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes Quinn would have like sort of a song already, like a backing track kind of thing going on, where I would come in, write a song on top of it. But it really just, I think, came down to us having like being very in sync with like what we like, and we, although we did do a lot of individual work, um, where things were really evolving is when we were just sitting in front of the computer and being like, oh, I think this should be like this or this like this, and having the freedom to do it as well, because it's just the two of us, so we can
Right.
literally do whatever we wanted. It doesn't matter that we don't have someone playing that instrument in the band. We can just figure it out or like sample it or having that freedom. I think neither of us
Mm-hmm.
had projects where we could do that, so that
Right.
was really that really informed, I think, the arrangements and stuff like that.
And I think
Yeah.
that this album is more like we're working on new music and we're trying to really have it be more minimalist, but this one is extremely maximalist. Uh, and it's sometimes hard to figure out how can you have like this many tracks and have it still sound like not too confusing or annoying or something. So
Right.
that was a difficult one for us, is like we just we wanted it to sound like some tracks, like you're saying, like some of them were a conscious decision. Like we want this to sound like Curve, or
Mm-hmm.
like wanted to sound like Cocteau Twins or something. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you listen to that, it's like it's just such a wall of sound. So we just tried to, on some of these, try to do the maximalist vibe, but have it be you know, digestible for the listener.
Right. Right. And having a bit of distance on the record, I mean, it came out February 29th, 2024 of this year. Um, what are your guys' impressions of it now? Like having put it out and, it's kind of gone through the record cycle. With that distance, did you guys achieve what you had hoped to achieve with this record?
I think so. And yeah, like artistically, definitely. And we had our little, I mean, this is, like you said, like new project. We hadn't
Mm-hmm.
been anything before. And that was literally the scariest thing in the world, was like releasing an album online. It's just such a strange time for musicians.
Mm-hmm.
But also that fear kind of evolved into something else, because the internet has been sort of like our saving grace as far as a band, just because we've made so many connections through sending our music to people. Um, but we just listened to it again on our drive from Montreal to Victoria, and it felt really good to hear it from a perspective where you're not working on promoting it and you're not working on, like it's just there and it exists. And there were songs on there that we had been working on for like 4 years, like, or like the initial idea was like made 4 years ago. So it's kind of relieving to have it just, and you can't do anything, you can't touch it, it's just out there, and that's how it is.
It makes you
out
like
there now. Right.
the amount of time that you spend, like if I'm working on a track with someone and I spend a day on it, then I can take a day off and it'll be like I never heard it or something like that. But like that same principle is with this. It's like if we were focusing on some of those songs like really intensely for 6 months, and you give it a 6 month break and you come back to it, I think we're kind of at that point right now. And yeah, it definitely feels more hands off. Like I'm not noticing. Like we listened to it when it first came out, it's like I can write down like every like mix note or everything that I thought was a problem, but now it just sounds like music. So that's cool.
That's wicked. And what song do you guys like together when you are hearing it? You look at each other and are like, "Yep, got it, nailed it." Like, is there a song that was that first one that was like, that's the sound, like that's it, like that's, I think we should build the whole record around that sound? Is there one song in particular that does that for you guys?
I'm not sure that I have that feeling. I have that feeling now, maybe with things that we haven't released, like, but that came from the process of making this record. Right. But I would say that the song that was the easiest to, like, we just made it. It was like, oh, well, that's kind of like a perfect song. Like immediately, like it was We Come Over Here. And I think that was pandemic sort of music making. We were in Victoria. I think that was like the first month of like a major lockdown in Canada. We were stuck here in a way. And Quinn had like rented a drum from Long and McQuaid, and he was practicing drums. Like we had
Apex Tornado.
Yeah. Every day we had these like very methodic things. Oh, well, let's go like each make music for this amount of time or whatever. And that's when I wrote the bones of that song. And then we set up like a very shitty little studio like in his room. And he had the drums in the room, and we just made that demo. And when we decided to actually make the song for the record, we just listened to the demo, and it was just kind of like, wow, like that happened so quickly, and it was sort of a magical process. So I would say probably that song is that for me.
Cool. What about you, Quinn? Does that ring true to you as well?
I completely disagree. That sounds probably, I'd say if there was one that encapsulates the vibe of the entire album, maybe it's that. It's really, that one feels kind of simple and you can tell that it came together fast. At the same time, there's different tracks poke into different like directions genre wise, and the track Centreville is really cool. I like that one, and we recorded it pretty fast as well, and I just mumbled lyrics, and then I asked Beatrice, can you think of this as if it was in French, and like phonetically, what does it sound like in French? And then she wrote those words down, and then that was the final lyrics for the song, was just phonetic translation of whatever I was mumbling. And then we were really into this band, Feeble Little Horse. They had just come up with their album. So then we got Sebastian, the guitar player, and he produces that stuff to produce that track. So then I just sent him the files, and he's just a wizard in Ableton. He just like totally made it super efficient. And then we heard it back, and it really felt like a way better synthesized version of that song. So that one I feel like is a cool collaborative track that is more in that kind of authentic, or like more like shoegazy indie rock direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
With French lyrics.
I love the simplicity of it too, right? It's like a handful of lines, but again, that you get mesmerized by it, like totally, Quinn. Like it's very, and I struggle with classifying it, you guys, as shoegaze, because you do play on all these different genres, which it's almost like you're building a new foundation for something else, and I mean, who knows what name, people like me or writers or reviewers will come up with, but it definitely has a spine of that, but there's so much more to it as well at the same time. As we kind of come to a close here, guys, what's on the docket for 2024? I heard that you guys said you were writing new songs. Is there anything you could tell us about shows or what's coming down the pipe for Diamond Day?
We've got a tour coming up on the West Coast that we'll announce soon, but it'll be some from Vancouver and then down into LA, and we'll be announcing that soon. And then we're excited we released one so far, No Joy from Quebec. There, she did a remix of our song Noisemaker, but we'll be excited to put out some more. We have, I don't know if it doesn't matter, but we have a whole bunch of remixes that of people that we really love their music. So that'll be coming soon. And anything else?
No, like just we're just excited to make more music, and there's some songs that didn't make it to Connect the Dots that we're excited to release. Some stuff in French for our Montreal, our Quebecois people.
Amazing. J'adore ça, j'adore. Merci. I mean, I love listening to French lyrics, and I was so pleased to see that some had made their way onto this. That's getting heard all over the world, which is that's great. Yeah.
He always insists on having. He's like, you should write something in French, and I'm just I roll my eyes and like, okay, like it sounds exotic to him or something, but
yeah. Well, I mean, Quebec's a very exotic place to most of the rest of the world, right? Because it's in Canada, but it's all, French. And like, I guess the Anglos were like 10% or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting demographic for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys. It's been really fun. I'm so glad that you took me up on this, and I just love how it started and where it's going. And I'll definitely be listening to for the next tunes to come out, and hopefully I'll catch you on the stage sometime soon.
Definitely, we'll be out there soon. So thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. You guys take care, and all the best with the record and the touring and the new songs.
Cheers.